MLB executive Tony Clark issued this statement in response. Players are disgusted that after Rob Manfred unequivocally told players and fans there would 100% be a 2020 season, he has decided to go back on his word and is now threatening to cancel the entire season. Any implication that the Players Association has somehow delayed progress on health and safety protocols is completely false. As Rob has recently acknowledged, the parties are very, very close. This latest threat is just one more indication that Major League Baseball has been negotiating in bad faith since the beginning. This has always been about extracting additional pay cuts from players, and this is just another day in another bad faith tactic in their ongoing campaign. Max, I'll start with you here. How will MLB look if there's no season?
Oh, well, look. The hockey world was up in arms because I'd mentioned a couple weeks ago no one cares about hockey. It's not one of the four major sports. Obviously, there are people who care about hockey, but not nearly as many as baseball, football, and basketball. The baseball economy, in other words, there's really a big three, and if there's a fourth, it's college football. But baseball's going to fall out of that top three. Like right now, their economy is bigger domestically than the NBA, but it's going to fall out of that top three, and it'll be football and basketball by themselves. It'll be NFL, NBA, and college football. Baseball is intrinsically not as an exciting sport, even though it's my favorite, right? I grew up with it. But I can recognize it's not as exciting as football or basketball. It already has some stuff working against it. But it has become increasingly culturally marginalized, you know? And it's a very local sport. Like everyone in New York knows what the teams around the country are doing in certainly football and also in basketball. In baseball, you don't. You follow your home team. And so it doesn't get discussed on national shows like this one very often, unless it's some item like this in the news, which is bad for baseball. If baseball doesn't come back, Stephen A., it will have done irreparable damage to itself, and the owners this time will finally be blamed more in proportion to their share of the blame. They are doing this. The players have already said, fine, we'll get our prorated salaries. Like Manfred did not represent that, in my view, accurately. Players are like, fine, where do we show up? The owners say, not so fast. Now you have to sign a waiver, basically, right? And interesting how all the rich people always want unions to, here, sign this waiver. You can't sue us in the future. Baseball players saying, wait a minute, tell us where to report. We'll play for our pro-rated salaries just like you want. No additional stuff. The owners are saying, no, we need additional stuff. As Dominic Foxworth said on this show a couple weeks ago, if you own a Major League Baseball team whose equity continues to increase year over year, and you've made billions already, and the revenues are up, and you can't take a hit of a shortfall for a year or two or make less money because fans aren't in the stands, you shouldn't own a baseball team, period. Stephen A., this is on the owners.
It's on the owners, Max. No question. I think the players are being screwed over in this particular situation, but they're going to get equally blamed. There is no way that anybody associated with Major League Baseball is going to walk away from this unscathed. You can slice it any way you want to. The public don't have time for that, and they're not going to get into the level of comprehension that you nor I nor anybody associated with professional sports, or at least covering it, is going to delve into. They're not going to care. All they're going to care about is that a global pandemic took place, is taking place. Over 40 million people have been furloughed or flat out unemployed, okay? They're on the unemployment line and what have you. At least 20 million of those people are not expected to have jobs if and when this subsides. It's a new day, and yet baseball is doing the same old stuff that they always done. Remember, it took the heroics of Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire to revitalize the sport once they canceled the World Series because people were so utterly disgusted. Well, why would it be just as profound during a pandemic? Here's why. Because there's nothing going on. And it was a perfect opportunity for you to grab the bull by the horn. Could you imagine what baseball would have meant to all of us if the games were being played now, when there's no basketball, when there's no football, when there's barely any tennis, any golf, we just got UFC and what have you? Could you imagine what that would have done for the sport of baseball, whose audience continues to get older and older? They haven't ingratiated themselves with the younger generation. They certainly haven't ingratiated themselves with the minority population in this nation, okay? When you talk about minorities in the sport of baseball, you're talking about from the Dominican Republic, Venezuela, and places like that. You ain't talking about African Americans in the sport of Major League Baseball, where it only compiles up to 6 or 7%. So you take all of those things into account. The fact that you don't take advantage of this moment because of labor strife at a time like this, there is no way that people are going to compartmentalize and say the owners screwed over the players. They're not going to do it, no matter how right it is. No matter how right it is to say
Stephen
that.
A.
That's not what they're going to do.
Stephen A., the owners are putting the nails in their own coffin, and unlike 98, all the HGH and steroids ain't going to be able to cheat themselves out of this one.
I agree.
Nice line, Max.
I agree,
All right, guys,
and it's not going to matter.
Let's leave it there.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.